Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And glad to have with us on our Newsmaker line this morning live, State Senator Tom O'Mara. Senator O'Mara, thank you so much for phoning in.
Thanks for having me on, Brian. It's great to be with you. Good morning, everybody.
Well, Senator, I see I check the Wellsville Regional News page every morning, a couple times a day, actually. It's a good news page, and I work closely with him, actually. Mike Baldwin over there. I help him with stories over here. He helps me with stories over there. Anyways, there's a column, Senator O'Mara weekly column, State Leaders Eyeing Higher Taxes Again. And you also speak about Medicaid in here. Can you tell us about this article, Senator O'Mara?
Well, yeah, the New York State is unfortunately looking at about a $6 billion deficit going into our next fiscal year, almost completely related to increases in Medicaid spending, and the most of that is directly related to Governor Cuomo's efforts to increase the minimum wage in New York State. A lot of those lower wage jobs are in the Medicaid provider area, and it was well known and argued at the time that those drastic and very fast increases to minimum wage were going to increase spending in those areas. The governor ignored that and went full speed ahead, and now we're facing very large deficits, our largest deficit in the state since the Great Recession back in 2009, so 10 years ago. That dug us in a big hole back then in the state, and now we're facing the same kind of problems here today that we're going to have to do. You know, I've been one that's talked about the Medicaid costs since I've initially ran for office for the state assembly, and continue with those arguments that we've got to get the cost of Medicaid under control. It's the largest cost in New York State spending, and we're still not doing enough on fraud and waste within that program. And the governor's just gone full speed ahead with increasing costs in Medicaid, increasing enrollment in Medicaid, and not doing enough enforcement of looking at ways to save costs in Medicaid. You know, when you have a program that's that large with that many people in it, you think you'd get some economies of scale. It's just the opposite of New York. It's gotten more expensive per individual on Medicaid rather than less expensive. So we're spending more overall. We're spending more per capita, and it's just a recipe for fiscal disaster in New York State.
Now, you brought up in your answer there, Senator O'Mara, that the governor's minimum wage plan is part of the problem going on. I got an email from the governor's office this past Friday morning, and it talked about the minimum wage rate schedule, and it said that it would be going up from $11.80 an hour. And correct me if I'm right here. It should be from $11.10 an hour to $11.80 an hour, and then they plan to make it $12.50 next year. Do they plan on going past the $12.50 an hour minimum wage for increases, Senator O'Mara?
Well, the way that is set up, that $12.50 is the last regularly scheduled increase. It's been increasing 70 cents a year per hour since we enacted the increase from $9 an hour. So $12.50 is the last kind of scheduled one, but then it's open and up to the recommendations of the Division of Budget in New York State as to whether further increases should continue to get it up to the same as what is downstate going to be this year, and that's $15 an hour. It's been $15 an hour in New York City for a couple of years now. for businesses with 10 or more employees. This year, it's getting to $15 for those businesses with less than 10 employees. And then the Long Island, Westchester area is getting up, I believe, to $14 an hour, and they'll go to $15 an hour next year when the rest of the state gets to $12.50. Those costs, those increasing costs, have proven to be very costly to the state itself because of all of the social service type work, including Medicaid and many others. The offices for those with developmental disabilities, providing these very important services that the state reimburses providers for. Those increases in the minimum wage directly get put on the backs of taxpayers, and the state has to find ways to make up revenues to do that.
We're talking with State Senator Tom O'Mara. We had a news story about you this morning, Senator. We had a quote from you and Assemblyman Palmisano talking about how the emergency responders in Steuben County are getting about $800,000 in funding for communications equipment. Now, is this? I took it as a countywide thing. It's not just the 911 center in Bath, right? It's to help emergency responders across the county. I take it.
It is to get. It's been going on all across the state to get first responders more effective communications equipment that works better, that works better together with other agencies and gets everybody connected. It's something that's been going on for quite some time to get that. And, these types of communications are extremely difficult in geography such as ours with a lot of hills and valleys. So these improvements are going a long ways to improve our first responders' ability to communicate.
Senator, do you have a sense? I know that they use CBs and walkie-talkies and whatnot, and I'm sure other kinds of equipment. But would any kind of cell phone or cell phone video technology be used from this $800,000 grant? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, I think most of the grants for the wireless technology is going towards digital radio. Is I believe what it's being used for. The technical details of it, I don't know for sure. I'm not aware of any cell phone video that's included in this spending. It could be. I just don't know off the top of my head to answer that question for you.
Sure thing. Yeah, I wasn't sure on that one. Talking to State Senator Tom O'Mara. As long as we're on the topic of emergency responders, several weeks ago, a lot of emergency responders led by the Hornell Fire Department were over on Preston Avenue and Washington Street for that terrible house fire situation. It was numerous houses that caught on fire, and I was wondering, Senator, I'm sure that you've been in contact with Mayor John Buckley and maybe the Hornell Fire Chief Frank Brzezowski on this one.
Well, I've certainly been in touch with the mayor, and the Hornell Fire Department did really an outstanding job, which could have been an even larger disaster than it was. As devastating as this fire was, the way those housing there is all connected and very close together, it was a huge disaster. And I've certainly been in touch with Mayor Buckley, and my heart and condolences go out to all those that were affected by this disaster. And just very thankful that it wasn't worse than it was, because it could have gotten much further out of hand.
Yeah, it was amazing that everybody survived that. As far as the human beings go, there was some pet losses, but it was amazing that no people died in that terrible fire. Senator O'Mara, we have that news story out this morning of Bath Police Chief Chad Mullen, and he takes a kind of a shot at the new bail reform laws. I didn't realize they were going to go into effect this early, but basically, what the police chief said was 3 suspects were arrested for allegedly selling crystal methamphetamines and then released within an hour of their arrest. The police chief, in his statement on this, called this the new New York State.
Unfortunately, that's correct, and I agree with the chief there on this. We're going to be seeing these types of immediate releases in cases that are very, very serious. A1 drug sales, such as we're talking about here with the crystal meth, but in other areas, a lot of crimes that you would consider to be violent crimes, burglary, for example, is going to have immediate release with no bail. And the reason we're seeing it now, before the January 1st implementation date, is that right now all of our county jails are going through the process of getting defendants that are in on bail before a judge, and that bail is being removed, and the individuals are being released. So at this point, individuals that are being arrested are being released because in a matter of just a few weeks, they would have to be released as a matter of law. And that process is something that's got to get every inmate that's in jail currently, pending prosecution, that will be released before a judge to have the bail eliminated in those cases. And we're going to see a lot of individuals getting out of our jails that are pending prosecution that have had bail set on them that very well may be considered flight risks. And these individuals that are selling crystal meth in this case, what's the likelihood of them returning to court to face the consequences? It won't. They'll return to court when they're arrested again for some other crime in many cases, and that's going to be a real huge negative to our communities, to our law enforcement, and just public safety in this state. I've been one of the more outspoken ones against this bail reform, having been a former prosecutor myself and district attorney in Chemung County. I am very concerned with these changes to bail reform and how that's going to negatively impact the safety of our communities. This is something that the majorities in the New York State Senate, that are all both houses now, the Senate and the Assembly, led by downstate extreme liberal members of the legislature. The Democrat Party in this state has chosen to move forward with these types of extreme liberal policies that are going to negatively impact the safety of our communities across New York State. I urge everybody, and have been, to reach out to the governor's office, email, telephone call, whatever. It's easy enough to find on the internet how to contact them, and let them know that this is just wrong, that we need to change what's going on here. Many of the reforms that have been done to criminal justice, there's been some reasonable ones, and certainly while bail may have been abused a bit on lower level crimes, this new reform, so-called, goes to very serious crimes in our communities, and these individuals are going to be let go, particularly in serious cases such as drug sales. You got drug runners coming through our communities between New York City and upstate cities, trafficking drugs. When they get arrested and they get released with no bail, what is the likelihood of them coming back to face the music in our local court? It's very low, and we will be seeing a lot of absconders in this state, I have no doubt.
Talking with State Senator Tom O'Mara, I have a few more questions for the senator. I want to talk about the New York health insurance that Governor Cuomo mentioned, also Congressman Tom Reed's fracking tweet. And I want to get the senator's thoughts on the idea of this police accountability board that they have in Rochester. Does he think that this will become a statewide thing? We'll be back in just a moment here on the Newsmaker Show.
Whether you use your vehicle for personal or business or both, you want to make a good impression when you pull in somewhere. That's why Rohan and Sean at RBS Auto Detailing on the corner of Pine and Canastillo Streets in Hornell are the men to see to get your vehicle looking so nice. RBS Auto Detailing. They're the professionals that have the right equipment to get the job done right. RBS Auto Detailing will get your vehicle cleaned inside and out. RBS Auto Detailing on the corner of Pine and Canastillo Streets in Hornell.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carolyn, who says it's going to be nice and then maybe not so nice.
That's right. We're going to be nice and mild, Brian, and then we say goodbye to the mild weather as colder temperatures return. Going to kind of see a plethora of precipitation over the course of the next couple of days. Today with the mild air, it's going to be some occasional rain that falls. We'll eventually get up to about 45 to 50, Brian, and it will become breezy. We'll melt some of the snow across the area with warm temperatures in the rainfall. Sunrise this morning, 7:28. Sunset tonight at 4:38. There'll be a couple of showers around tonight. We remain mild overnight, lows near 45. Colder weather, that starts to move in tomorrow, so things start changing. Scattered rain showers will change to snow showers tomorrow. It'll be breezy. We'll have a morning high of 45. Temperatures go down later in the morning and through the afternoon. Tomorrow night, it's snow showers. We're cold. We're 20 to 25. And then mostly cloudy with a chance for flurries on Wednesday, 30. Looks like our first day to really see some decent amounts of sunshine this week will be Thursday, Brian.
Thank you, Rob Carolyn. Back with Senator Tom O'Mara. Senator, the Rochester PAB, the Police Accountability Board's made a lot of news. Wondering, is that on the agenda for Albany to make it a statewide thing, this idea of a civilian review board?
I don't know of anything specific that's pending in Albany on this yet. The effort of looking at police accountability and that has certainly been a priority in Albany. There hasn't been anything of a civilian review board that I've seen yet coming through Albany. We've got to be very cautious in these areas that we don't limit the effectiveness of our police. And their willingness to go out and put their lives on the line. But if they're second and third guessing every action they take that's going to be attacked by some civilian review board, and we know these things can take a life of their own. Everything that's been coming out of Albany, and I haven't seen this type of thing proposed yet. It has been in the favor of the criminal and against law enforcement. So you have police officers that are concerned about every action they take in the field, and if they shy away from doing their jobs because all they're going to be doing is defending themselves for every action they take, it's going to be a lessening of the effectiveness of our law enforcement. Police officers are out there doing an extremely dangerous job, making split-second decisions, and if every one of those is going to be picked apart by some civilian complaint review board, I think that is going to be problematic for the effectiveness of our law enforcement in the state. And as I've said, everything is going the way of the criminal. We've got this, not just this bail reform we talked about already. We have the discovery reforms for prosecutors, which are very onerous. And while I think in many cases, including the bail reform and this discovery, some positive changes are being made. It's just going way too far, way too extreme with the way they're going at this, particularly with all the crimes that are included in the bail reform, very serious crimes. But the discovery is requiring prosecutors to provide their full discovery of every matter, every arrest, pending indictment or post-indictment. Within 15 days, all discovery has to be disclosed. Now, that is just an onerous burden on any prosecutor's office. It is, again, going to increase significantly the cost to these DA's offices, which is borne by our county property taxpayers. It's something that our county governments fund for that prosecution, and these requirements are just too extreme. I'm in favor of more open disclosure in these criminal cases to provide discovery to defendants much further before trial than is being done right now. But to do it in 15 days when 95% of these cases ultimately end in a plea bargain and a guilty plea. This is going to exponentially increase the amount of this type of work that's being done, this administrative work that's being done by our prosecutors' offices. Every DA's office in the county is going to have to hire people to deal with these increases, and a lot of it is just totally unnecessary.
We've been talking with State Senator Tom O'Mara, and I wanted to get a couple other quick questions in, Senator. The governor says it's not too late to sign up for health insurance with New York Health. Is that an Obamacare thing?
Yeah, that's part of it. Certainly it's part of it. It's an expansion that New York State has undertaken. New York State has done, I think, probably far more in that regard than any other state has done. And certainly the expansion of those programs, while it's good to get people covered and insured, that comes with higher costs. And it's higher, those higher Medicaid costs, as we talked earlier, that is all an offshoot and expansion of the Affordable Care Act, or the so-called Obamacare.
And I don't know if you happen to see Congressman Tom Reed's statement on Twitter about fracking, criticizing Governor Cuomo for the ban on hydrofracking, and the governor said, or the congressman criticized the governor, saying that Pennsylvania and Ohio are better off because of fracking. Do you think that issue will ever be revisited, hydrofracking?
It won't be revisited under this governor, but it certainly will be revisited, I think, under future administrations. This has just been a colossal negative for the state. Such a loss of potential economic activity with natural gas exploration of the Marcellus Shale and the Utica Shale that is prevalent across the southern tier, would be a huge economic boon to New York State as a whole, but in particular the southern tier region that needs it more than any other region. And certainly with our electrical generating facilities, many of which have switched from dirtier burning coal to cleaner natural gas, it's been a huge net decrease in our carbon emissions in the state just with those transfers, and we could do a lot more with exploring gas in New York State and reaping the economic benefits that Pennsylvania and Ohio have seen. It's really been just a catastrophe for our economy in the southern tier that not have been able to pursue that.
Well, Senator, with that, we do have to get going. I wanted to wish you a very nice, happy holidays. Have a great Christmas, Senator O'Mara, if we don't talk to you again before then.
Well, Brian, Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners, and Happy New Year to everybody. I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure to be with you and your listeners, and I'm looking forward to a white Christmas here.
Thanks so much, Senator.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Take care.